Oh, man, this is exciting being on the leadoff hole. I like it. Am I an honorary Mac today? Am I Rob McEllis? I love it.
There we go. There we go. Yeah,
right.
you're playing two today. I already saw it.
I'm Ernie Banks today, John, for our older audience. Yes, welcome in, everybody. Birds 365. I'm Rob Ellison for Jody Mac. I get to hang with my guy, John McMullen, for 2 hours. What's up, Johnny Mac?
Let's play two. Yeah, I mean, beautiful day. Why not? Why not for Rob Ellis? Now, I don't have to play two, so that's easy. But I appreciate it. I always say Rob Ellis is the Mo Cheeks of Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio. Great point guard. Dishing it off. I love it. I love it. Hall of Famer.
I'm going to be throwing you lobs all day that you're just going to be able to dunk, John. That's what we're going to be doing.
I don't know if I'm Bobby Jones, but I'll try.
You can't go wrong with Bobby Jones, by the way. Great show that we have. Speaking of Bob Grotz is going to be joining us from the Delco Times in the a little bit later in the 8 o'clock hour. And then Breland Moore from Fox 29 in the 9 o'clock hour. That's a strong show right there you guys have provided me with, John.
Yeah, Breland making her Birds 365 debut as well. So that's excikind.
That's heavy Temple
people.
Yeah. Very heavy, John.
Yeah.
Now, are you a Temple guy as well?
I am not. So I'm kind of on the outside looking in. I assume you guys are going to gang up on me, but we'll see how it goes.
Now,
a little too much Matt Rule love, I guess.
By the way, I was at the two probably biggest games, not to get off on a whole Matt Rule thing here, of the Matt Rule era. The game when they beat Penn State, if you remember, at the Link. Okay, when geez, that was a while ago, right? So that was probably the biggest win, I would think. And then the biggest near win was the loss to Notre Dame in a prime time game at the Link as well during the Rule era.
Yeah, I believe to continue with the Philly theme, I believe Will Fuller is the one that killed.
He did.
Temple had him beat.
I did.
And Will Fuller was a great college receiver. Was a very good NFL receiver. Boy, he could run.
He just couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah, couldn't stay healthy. But he was great at Notre Dame. I was at that game. I wasn't at the Penn State game.
Yeah, Hackenberg got just beaten up in that game by Temple's, including Sean Bradley and some other guys. Hassan Reddick on the Temple defense for sure.
Yeah, that was the apex of Temple. Now Penn State, then they beat Penn. That was probably even bigger.
Yeah,
I wasn't at there, but that was really an exciting atmosphere. It was packed. Yeah, it was great.
It was good, man. It was really good. John, let me ask you. I was thinking about this. I bounced this off of Derek Gunn and Seth Joyner yesterday, but I'm curious what you think on this. Looking at the upcoming season, and I know, we all sort of point at the schedule after the bye, and I know, look, I'm not denying how difficult that looks like it is on paper, right? But I think we're sort of in this mode of the early portion of the schedule is kind of a cakewalk, and it's going to be, I hear people 5-0 and this and that coming out of the chute. I'll start with the first game because I think the early portion is a little bit trickier than people think, is in particular the first two games. But I think that New England game is going to be a little bit tougher. And I don't know if you and Jody have kicked that around or where you stand on it, but I think it's going to be a little bit tougher.
No, I agree. Now, I think the Eagles, I like the schedule from the perspective of what you were saying, Rob. I think there's going to be some hiccups early. So, I think people are kind of overlooking the I don't know if that's the right term, but the change in coordinators. That's a big deal.
It is.
And not that Brian Johnson or Sean Desai aren't going to do a good job. They might do a great job, but you're going to have some growing pains early.
Right.
And I think having those lighter opponents on the schedule early, you can kind of get through it and maybe make a few mistakes and get out of there with wins. But anytime you go on the road, I would tell Jody this last year. Jody was like, Detroit. I'm like, that's going to be a tougher game than people realize because, one, it's the home opener. So people are all fired up. They haven't gotten mired in losing. They're really – and I was there. That was a tough atmosphere to deal with. That was
Jalen was incredible in that game, kind of running for his life too, by the way.
DeAndre Swift, a lot of the reason why he's here. That was his best game as a pro.
Yeah.
And the Eagles remembered it. And they were able to persevere and get out of there with a win, but it was very, very difficult. I kind of look at that New England game in the same way. Wouldn't surprise me if they lost the game because it's such a difficult spot, home opener, Tom Brady day.
Right.
Everybody's going to be fired up. But ultimately, I think they're going to out-talent them. I really do. And if you sneak out of there with a win, I think then you're off and running, and you're probably not dealing with another potential loss until the Jets. Amazing as that.
First
Eagles
game they're
never-
not favored, right, John? Isn't that? I think that's the first game of the schedule they're not favored.
Yeah, I mean, the
Pretty
Eagles
sure.
have never lost to the Jets, and
Yeah.
now we're all talking because Aaron Rodgers, and rightfully so. I mean,
Right.
they're going to be a good football team. Not that the Eagles can't win the game, but it's not. It's as you mentioned, they're not going to be favorite in that game. Now, a lot of things can happen if the Jets go in a wrong direction. Injuries are the story always in the NFL, so all of that we know is kind of baked into it. But Minnesota, look, they're a talented team.
They are.
But they came here for the home opener. If I were Minnesota, I'd be pissed. They came here for the home opener last year, got blown off the field.
Yeah, and where they shut down Justin Jefferson. I mean, they did as good a job on Justin Jefferson as probably anybody did all year.
As anybody. So they have to come into that same atmosphere, home opener. We've seen the Vikings fall apart in the past. Kirk Cousins, prime time. We know that narrative. Look, a short week on the road. That's probably easier than it should be for the Eagles, to be honest. And then I think Tampa Bay is going to be a bad team. The Rams are going to be a bad team. And in between there, you have Washington at home.
Yeah.
Look, Washington has a better roster than people realize, but bottom line is Sam Howell's unproven, first-time starting quarterback, essentially a rookie, early in the season, at home. It's kind of an easy spot for the Eagles on paper.
Well, I think the advantage too, just to go back to the Vikings game, as tough as it is to do the quick turnaround thing, at least it's early and you're not as beat up as you would be if it was week 8 or week 11 or something like that, if you had to do that, right? So I think there's an advantage there. Then you do get 11 days off, which is big. I'm in agreement. Like the thing I don't know about a couple of these teams, like the Vikings, how much does Brian Flores impact the defensive side of the ball, which has been an issue?
They're going to be better. I don't know how much better, but they're going to be better just from his presence.
The other one is how much better. I'm with you. Sam Howell's is just a massive question mark. But with Eric Bieniemy, what kind of difference does he make? Doesn't matter if you don't have a quarterback, right? So I think there's sort of the unknown with those two teams.
Yeah. Certainly with Washington, it's mainly. You're right. I think they're going to be better with Eric Bieniemy. They have talent, but I just think the young quarterback is going to, even if and that's not to say, week 8 when you have to go down to FedEx Field, it's probably going to be all Eagles fans, but that might be more difficult if he gets his feet under him. They beat him last year. It's the only team that beats Jalen Hurts as a starting quarterback, and that was with Taylor Heineke until the Super Bowl. So they're better than people think they are. But I do think you have that nice cushion of a young quarterback trying to develop early in his career. I think that's a tough spot for Washington. And then, I'm with you with Flores. I mean, look, Ed Donatel, for those who don't know, Minnesota's defensive coordinator, was a disaster last year. And, the way he used players like Harrison Smith, and he's going to the Hall of Fame, and he's, a more traditional box safety, moves all over the field. Think Malcolm Jenkins when he was here, moves all over the place, does a lot of different things. He's got him playing, the Big Fangio, cover 2, cover quarters, cover 8. Just out of position. Eric Kendricks, who was a great linebacker. People remember his brother, Michael, just played him out of position. Brian Flores is going to take those guys, and they don't have a ton of talent on that side of the ball, but he's going to maximize that talent. He's one of those guys. Eagles fans would actually, we all talk about their hatred of Jonathan Gannon, was Sean Desai going to change? They would love Brian Flores. Brian Flores is, there's 2 defensive coordinators Eagles fans would like. And I shouldn't say love because ultimately it comes down to success or failure, right? They had the number 2 defense in the NFL last year. A lot of fans hated it.
I trust me, I know.
Flores is aggressive.
Yep.
And Wink is aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to take advantage. If they got a guy who can't cover, but he can blitz or can't do this, but they're going to utilize what they can do. And to be honest, I'd like that type of coach. But there's an old saying in the NFL, you can have the best coaches, give me the best talent.
Yeah.
Eagles most weeks have the best talent.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And not to get off on a Gannon rant because it's exhausting, frankly. But
I'm exhausted.
Oh, it never. By the way, it's the never-ending story. After the Florio,
don't even get me started. Can I rip Florio? Good God!
Of course you can. Go ahead.
And it wasn't even about his interview with Howie. That's fine. Push the guy, do what you have to do when you get him on the show.
The eye roll line was a bit much. But.
Well, yeah. I get it from that perspective. But then, and I'm trying to pull it up, and this is because I don't want to paraphrase it. I want to tell you exactly what he said. He said, "I'll wear this top 5 conspiracy theorist thing as a badge of honor. The NFL and its teams constantly lie to us, and 99.99% of the media swallows up and peddles their bullshit without questioning it. I won't play that game." I'm like, boy, man. First of all, he's right. They lie to us all the time.
Right.
But I mean, I asked Howie the question that day, and believe me, we try to figure these things out behind the scenes. We ask these tough questions behind the scenes. For a guy who spent his life in a successful life aggregating reporters and then questions the way we do it and says, that is unbelievable hubris and bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we constantly, you don't think we've asked Howie these questions?
Yeah.
I said day one, you can ask Jody. I said, give me a break. Arizona self-reported. Give me a break with this.
There's no doubt Arizona did not turn themselves in.
What happened is John, and I said, John Ferrari's the assistant GM. His history is compliance, football operations, football rules. He's brilliant at all that.
Yep.
He caught Arizona in a procedural. They made a procedural mistake with a young GM.
Mm-hmm.
And they took advantage of it to gain draft capital. And by the way, I applaud the Eagles.
Yeah, exactly. Any advantage you can get there, why not?
Yeah. Went outside the margins. That's what they do so well. That's it. But, Occam razor applies, but everybody, Mike's a conspiracy theorist. And I always say that the conspiracy theorist, what is the end game? What do you think happened? Give me that and work backwards.
Well, what happens, John? It feeds into the he didn't have them prepared in the Super Bowl, and that's why the Eagles lost, et cetera, et cetera. Like, to me, look, I think everybody
prepared the first half, Rob.
No doubt.
They were pretty damn good the first half.
I agree. Like, the second half was a total failure defensively. I mean, everybody wears it. Gannon wears it. But how do you – we're very quick for whatever reason. I'm not sure exactly why, but we're very quick to lay it at the feet of a coach and always let the player off the hook. We really are. I mean, when you're burned on identical plays and you're a veteran like Slay, how do you get off the hook on that? That's what I don't understand. And everybody, Bradbury, you name it, they all wear this.
Well, yeah. I mean, you look at the Sixers bowing out. Nobody wants to blame Joel. They want to fire the coach. Doc's fired. Oh, if Joel had this. No, blame the guy. We've seen it, the same movie year after year after year. You can blame the guy. It's no, one of the things with the Vic Fangio level of defenses and all the teams that play it, for the entire year, 19 games, Rob.
Right.
The reason the Eagles were the best at it is because of the communication in the secondary.
Yep.
Those guys were tremendous. Slay, Bradbury, CJ, Marcus Epps, tremendous. Avonte Maddox when he was healthy. Mm-hmm. That communication, all that zone coverage, I just mentioned, the cover 2, the quarters, the cover 6, the cover 8, they were tremendous at it. They crapped the bed in the biggest spot.
Yep.
They didn't communicate. They crapped the bed in the biggest spot. But everybody wants a scapegoat. Yeah. They're not going to blame Slay because you can't
point 10 fingers or 11 fingers, John. It's easier just to point one. Yeah, no doubt. I agree. I agree 100%. And I didn't want to get off on a whole Gannon thing because it's
No.
like I said, it's
It was
exhausting.
more of a Florio thing.
It was more of a Florio thing.
I mean, don't aggregate our work and then insult us. All right. Thanks, Mike.
I don't know if you and Jody have kicked this one around, but I would be interested to hear where you fall on this. Okay. You look at it now. I think the offense hits the ground running, and I think there's very little, I don't think they fall back at all. I think they're going to be fine. But I want to talk about the defense for a minute in this sense. You do have a new defensive coordinator. You do have a new secondary coach. You do have a new linebacker coach, and they lost some pieces. Take the coaches out of it for a minute. Let's talk about players. of the core players that they lost, John. And, you could spell it out any way you want. CJ, GJ, Hargrave, Edwards, say whatever. Who would you say would be the biggest loss?
It's either TJ or CJ. I go back and forth. I think they're more prepared to replace TJ because I think Nakobe's going to be a very good player. I don't know if they're as prepared to replace CJ. There's a lot of, upside to Sidney Brown, but you think about not only is he a rookie, but he's essentially changing positions from, a box safety to a post safety, which the Eagles talked about and projected him as, but that's easier said than done. I think there's going to be growing pains. I always quote Jim Schwartz. Jim gave me that great line, startup cost. I always use it because I love it. There's startup costs with young players, and there's going to be startup costs with Nakobe, but I think he's a little bit further ahead. Just in a vacuum, I would say TJ Edwards because he was the green dot. He played so well. But I think they're better prepared to replace him a little bit than CJ. So that's why I kind of waver. But they're all, Javon Hargrave was probably the best player that they lost. But I got to be honest, I'm not even concerned about that. That's how good I think Jalen Carter's.
I do too. I think by week 8, it's not even going to be close who the best defensive tackle is on this team. Like it is going to be by a mile. It's Jalen Carter.
Yeah. Barring obviously if he gets in trouble, but if he's on the field, if everything's copacetic, and I see Bob Gross in the crew, he's already laughing at me. If he's healthy, if he's on the field, if he's healthy, boy, that kid can play, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, it's vastly different than last year where there are a lot of unknowns, right? I mean, you think about linebacker, you think about safety, even as much as we like Carter, you think about defensive tackle. I mean, it's a lot different than the veterans and the depth that they had last year. That's for sure. So, hey, look, it's going to happen when you have a team that plays as well as they played last year. Guys are going to leave. It's as simple as that. And it was for them, I mean, for a lot of the players on the Eagles that were coming into their free agent year, it couldn't have worked out better. I mean, they had career years in a lot of ways. All right, let's get a quick timeout in. You mentioned the aforementioned Bob Gross is ready, man. He is ready. Everything John says, he's shaking his head. He's in disgust. It's unbelievable. So we'll talk to Bob Gross from he's stretching right now as we speak, from the Delco Times. He will be joining us when we come back. This is fun, man. I'm loving the Birds 365. Jody, you might get Wally pipped, man. Look out. No, I'm kidding. He's John McMullen. I am Rob Ellis in for Jody Mack. We'll have Bob Gross when we come back. Don't go anywhere. Birds 365 right back.
Do you stream